Well, welcome to the Dallas Film Podcast. My name is Tony Armour. I am the Dallas Film Commissioner, and we're excited to have a pair of awesome filmmakers with us today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Thank you, Tony. My name is Robie Flores, and I am the director for our movie, The In-Between.
And I am Alex Flores, Robbie's younger brother, and I'm the producer for The In-Between.
Awesome. Well, since you have already told us the title of the film that you've recently produced, which played at South by Southwest just in March, a little over a month ago, or about a month ago from when we're talking now, tell us about the film.
I still have such a hard time explaining. I just turned to Alex because he says it so well.
After 7 years of working on this project, 6 for me, Robbie has had it's been a long journey of a shifting narrative. But the film is an exploration of Mexican-American identity through coming-of-age moments on the Texas-Mexico, specifically the Eagle Pass-Piedras Negras border, as we are trying to reconnect with the memory of our brother who passed away. And so it's a film about exploration of identity through memory, and what is our identity whenever the stories and the memories of that make us up, we no longer remember. And so it's like recovering this identity through memory.
Wow. And so you shot all of this in Eagle Pass, Texas. And for people like myself, or maybe not super familiar with the geography of Texas, can you tell us where Eagle Pass is at?
Yes. Eagle Pass is Southwest Texas, Mexico border. It is closest to, if people are familiar with Del Rio or Laredo, Texas. There's also, if you fly into San Antonio and you drive 2.5 hours down off of I-35, right? And then you get to 57 South, exit 111 on I-35, and then 57 South, and then it'll take you all the way to the border. So
is this one of those towns where literally if you want to go to Eagle Pass, like the closest airport is San Antonio, and it's 2.5 hours away, and you've got to fly in and then drive another 2.5 hours to get there? There's no easy way to get there, basically.
There's no easy way to get there. It's been like our life's challenge, Tony. It's like, and then with all the traveling that we're doing with the film, which is so exciting, but it's like oh my God, it's like the logistics of getting home every time, because we have to get to San Antonio. And if I don't, like, I live in New Orleans now. And so every time I go home, like, I'll just drive home because I want my car there. Yeah. And so it's like an hour drive and we just go for it. But then when we have to do like quick in and outs, and it's just like easier, like if we can't be driving and like I can't just leave my car down there, it's like I have to fly into San Antonio and then wait for someone to go pick us up.
Right.
Or take a bus or rent a car. But then cars are so expensive. Oh my God, it's my lifetime. So if someone wants to make a real, like a legit airport that's like commercial for everybody, not just the private airport in Eagle Pass, a lot of people would buy into that. I think it'd be great business. So.
That would help you out a lot, at least.
It would help me. It would help. I mean, all of my friends that grew up there, all of my family, everybody would buy into this. It's just like life would be so much easier.
Is it like how big is it population wise? Like how many people live there, or in the general vicinity or area?
It's like 33,000, no? Okay. Like give or take.
Yeah.
And then the Piedra side is like 100 something thousand. Yeah.
130.
Wow. Interesting. So tell me a little bit more about the film then. So you said, it's in memory of your brother. Can you talk about what inspired you to make the film starting 7 years ago, and kind of like what that kernel of an idea was that took you on this journey over such a long period of time to make a documentary? I don't know anybody who has ever made a documentary in a short period of time. I've made several documentaries and they always take a long time to make. It's the nature of the business, but just tell us a little bit more about it.
Don't tell me that, Tony. This is our first one. I was like, okay, this is the first one, but the next one's going to take 2 years. Or
well, 2 years, that's reasonable, right? But 7, that is a long time. Yeah. But it's never like 6 months and you're done, right? It's not like shooting a narrative film.
But that's what I thought it was going to be. I was like, okay. So, I mean, there were like several little like kernels of catalysts for this, but it was like, 2016 election. I was working in a newsroom with like video news editors. I was like working, like I was a video editor on like another project, but next to the news editors, and they were like constantly like going over like the cycle of like of points, talking points for like the election at the time, and it was the border and like, you know,
things have changed so much. Nobody talks about that anymore at all.
Oh my God, it changed in a way that I did not expect. Or maybe like maybe I was too young in the previous election cycles that I didn't realize what the border narrative was. But at this point, I was in the newsroom and I was like there, and I was like, just like all the crazy stuff about the border. I'm like, are you serious? Like, did I imagine my childhood? Cause like, this sounds like some like action thriller, and it was really quite boring, like, you know. And so I was just like, I wanted to like go back home, revisit it, and just kind of like film it for myself to just sort of like validate my experience growing up, and also just have this proof that it's like, it's not that crazy, you guys. Like, we can, you know, we can talk about, you know, all of these issues that pertain to the border in a different way without like villainizing this place. Like, this is my home. This is the home for a lot of people. And so I wanted to go revisit home and document it through the eyes of the people living there, and with just like how the border functions. Like, what does it look like to cross back and forth? Because even like within Texas, I mean, it's a massive state, but like when I would go to San Antonio or when I went to college, I went to Texas A&M for a little bit, but like when I was like in College Station, it's just like, I thought this was like close enough to our region ish relatively that, you know, people would have some idea about the border. And no one, I mean, even in San Antonio, it was like, wait, you cross the border? Like, what does that look like? And so we just wanted to show like just basics, like how does this place function? Because it's such a like uniquely amazing American landscape that people don't have that access to like we do. You know, it was such a privilege to grow up there. And so it was kind of like this sort of like revisit home in a way to validate our experience for other fronterizos, and then an invitation for everybody else that doesn't get to have that experience. And so it started like that. And I was also trying to impress a guy, now my husband, who worked.
You're like, wow, she's a filmmaker. All right.
Yeah. And then, and there were like, you know, and I wanted to like also get the opportunity to like shoot something myself and edit something myself. It was like really hard to break into like out of assistant work and like, in New York. So it just all lined up, and it took me down there. And then eventually I hauled Alex down there. I convinced him to quit his job.
Now, Alex, where were you at, not in Eagle Pass, that you went back down to work on this film?
I was working in Durham, North Carolina for this German grocery retailer, Lidl. It's like all over Europe, and they moved their operations to America. And I was with them for 2 years, making great money, putting my time in. But the plan had always been, since we were kids, to have a sibling production company. It's four. It's our older brother, Paco, Robbie, and then my twin brother and I. And we were all really into film. Like, our dad was a big film consumer, and that's how we spent a lot of our weekends, is like together as a family in our parents' bedroom, like watching TV. And so she said, we always had this plan of making films together. I'm on this journey. Like, why don't you just quit your job and we do the thing that we said we were always going to do? And I was like, okay.
That's always a super safe bet. Quit the job and move on to something. Now, were you for the Lidl, the German grocery company, were you doing something in sort of video or marketing department, or was it something completely unrelated?
I studied supply chain. I went to UT and studied business, got my degree in supply chain. And so I was working in their warehouse as a supply chain manager. And when Robbie asked me to move over to film, I was like, how am I going to apply what I've learned these last few years? And she was like, well, in business, you are taking this like product from like the raw material to the end consumer, and think of film no different. It's going to be creating this film from nothing and then getting it eventually to an audience. And so,
well, and you know what? She really is totally right. My background was in business before I got into film, and I was a district manager for a retail company. And now I've had a career for 20 plus years in producing films and blah, blah, blah. But when I started making my first feature, the thing that I realized was, oh, this is just a business. So just run it like you would a business. Just be organized, manage people well, manage your budget, do the things that need to be done. You can make a movie. I'm making it sound super easy, but it's not. But no, when you were saying supply chain management, I'm like, oh yeah, all of that translates directly into producing a film.
100%. That's exactly what he did. He made a budget. He got us organized. I was like, I could not figure any of that out.
Got us funding.
No, that's the hard part right there. That's always the most difficult.
The hard part. But Alex brought in, which is like super valuable. And I'm like, this just helps my life so much now. But everything was like, what is the end goal? And then make the steps back from like that, that point to now. And that's how they were like setting up all the new stores and stuff, and just like make your to-do list backwards. Yeah. And it feels less overwhelming, so much more manageable in a space where things are seemingly unmanageable and impossible. So business was amazing. Thank you, UT Business School.
That's awesome. And so you guys started shooting 7 years ago, and it's funny that we're having this conversation now because I was just talking to a friend of mine in Florida who's starting to make a documentary now. And part of the conversation that we had was, once you start shooting, you think you know what the story is going to be, but once you start shooting and then you get into the edit, it's a different story than you started with, because you think you have a script or you have a treatment. This is a story I want to tell, but it changes. And that's the beauty of documentary filmmaking. It actually makes you a better narrative filmmaker, I think, making documentaries, in finding the true story in there. So talk about that process of kind of finding your story, what you started with and what you ended with.
I think so too. We haven't done a scripted film yet, but I do feel like the quick adapting, especially because we wanted to, the film was always inspired by like the films that we devoured when we were younger and stuff. And we were, I got there and was like totally inspired by Slacker and Boyhood and Chantal Akerman's like slow patient cinema and just like the beauty of a setup shot. And so I wanted it to be really cinematic, and that was always driving it, especially for a movie about the border, which we don't get to see in this sort of like, celebratory space ever. I don't think, now there's been this sort of like, wave of films by amazing peers that we've seen, just kind of like wanting to see it in the way that we experience. And before Las Martas in Laredo was, predates all of this, but yeah, it was like wanting to, going down a shoot and thinking also back then like, oh, I was living in New York. I'll like go home for 6 months, shoot it. I'll be back by December, and edit. And it was just like insane. That was never going to happen, especially with the approach that I was taking. I always wanted it to be a film with a lot of told by like a cast of voices, because I didn't, it's like, it's not my, like to be able to tell the experience of the border. It's like, it's a shared fluid experience between a lot of us. And I wanted to always show that. And in the beginning, the film was really sort of like I said, just like how the border functions, and sort of, I was coming fresh off of like journalism school and working in news for a while. And so I wanted to be really objective and just, play by the rules and prove by this objective eye that like, I'm not altering anything here. This is what it's like. But it was quite boring because it was like just a bunch of, just like business meetings with like, which are fascinating if you think about like these people on both sides of the country, just like normal, casual, working together, and with like importing and exporting and talking about like all the coronas that go into the US are like coming from Piedras, like our side of the border, like the Mexican side of the border. Like that's so cool. But people don't really, I don't know. It was still kind of like slow and boring. So eventually it moved into the like this childhood space, like revisiting home through that like childhood experience, because I convinced my niece to let me actually to go to the carnival so I could film her just like going to the carnival like we did when we were kids. And it was so magical, and to get to like experience it through her eyes and just like with whatever she wanted to do, it felt like a portal into the past. And so at that point I was like, I just want to focus on what it looks like to grow up here, because that's what I know. It's kind of like write what you know. I was okay, I'll film what I know. I was going to
say that makes a lot of sense, especially when you talk about, what you started out. It was boring. But, when people are watching anything, film, television, documentaries, people connect with people. And so if there's a human story that people can find some way to connect with, that's what draws an audience in and makes them want to watch and makes it emotionally engaging. And because people do sometimes think of documentary as just being facts and just, I'm going to lay out these facts and here it is, but that's not documentary. That's journalism. Documentary filmmaking is still storytelling. So you're still telling a story, and there's still a certain point of view, to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, that you have to have in a film.
Exactly. And we wanted, I'm a huge believer in films that I get a little frustrated with like the categorization, because I think especially in America and with like the rise of like documentary in like on streaming platforms, which I totally devour and consume myself, but it's not like that's not the only form of documentary. But then it just starts to feel like, these documentaries that are like have like your components, your traditional components, is the only form of, it's like unscripted storytelling, más bien, I think. And it's just kind of like, what's the best way to tell the story that we want to tell? And it just happens to be through these people with their experiences. But, all films mix elements. And I like the fluid space in storytelling, because coming where we come from, our culture is that it's like weave back and forth, and we're like, our culture is what's created in between, in the middle of like the sum of all of those parts. And I see that in storytelling too. And we loved mixing, those cinematic elements with real situations and using, using sort of like more, not scripted, but like more controlled and directed scenarios for certain scenes and things like that. So it was kind of a mishmash of all of our inspirations.
Yeah. No, and it's really cool because, if you like you talked about like docudramas on Netflix and things like that, they have a very defined format. Like they know what their format is. Like they'll be drilled down to the minute. This happens at minute. And screenplays are written that way too. Page 12, this happens. Page 17, this happens. But their docudramas are dialed in because they know where people click off. And so they know things have to happen at these moments to keep people on. And so it's a different kind of storytelling from what you were talking about from, say, your cinematic influences that you would watch that can let things play out a little bit more and be a little, slower paced and just let the story unfold. And so maybe tell me a little bit about, you mentioned a couple of films and you said that your dad was a big cinema guy. What were films that your dad was really into that influenced the two of you?
It was a lot of 80s action.
Yes. I already love your dad.
not like, art cinema, but he was really into Al Pacino. He loved Sean Connery. He liked Van Damme.
Oh yeah.
He liked Sylvester Stallone. So like he was big into Rocky. He was big into Rambo. Like Rain, was it Medicine Man?
I mean,
Yeah,
probably like Action Jackson. That was a film from '87 with Carl Weathers in it. That was right in that whole wheelhouse. I'm sure all of the Schwarzenegger, Predator, and Commando, and all that fun stuff.
all that fun stuff.
Yeah, he's a definite child of the '80s, like I am. Then that was my era growing up. Like those are the films that, like, as a kid, I'm like, yes, this is what I love.
Yeah, he was. I mean, and this was a guy. My dad was like born in 33, old.
Oh, okay. I thought we were close to the same age, but no, that's not true.
No, from Mexico. But like, I mean, he just like, it was just like America to him,
Yeah.
It's just like, and, but no, he got us into just like the magic of movies and like what, like the possibilities that movies bring to you that, like for us growing up, it was like my dad would put on like some crazy action film. And then our older brother, Paco, would like immediately go and just like, create a costume and like build a whole city out of like cardboard boxes and like play the scene and like what that created, what like movies created for us after the fact, especially 'cause my older brother Paco was like just so creative and like can make anything still to this day, like jack of all trades, artist of all trades. And what it did for him, for my older brother, that he then gave to us was like magic. And so anything seemed possible. And our older brother, so Paco, at 19 made his first film.
Awesome.
In Eagle Pass that like then paved the way for us and for us knowing that it was possible and to go back to that like childhood wonder that created for us. Like it really just made that space for us to feel like, okay, if we want to see something, we can create it, we can build it, we can make it happen. And so it was exciting to bring that into like the doc space because and throughout the 7 years it changed a lot because in the beginning, as I said, like coming from journalism, I was trying to be very direct cinema, very fly on the wall, just like not interfering. And then as like time went on, I was like, well, we're coming across all these like magical moments that just happen on their own from us just being patient and being there. And that was always just so rewarding and exciting. But then there were times that I was like, I want to see a beautiful picnic by the river because it's like there's on the Mexican side, everybody's hanging out and it's so lively and beautiful and everybody's hanging out over here, but they're just fishing. But like a picnic would be great, because we would do that.
Yeah.
And so then just setting that up ourselves, like little things like that, there was like a mix of those both, all of those influences and having that world opened up to us since, at a very young age.
Yeah, that's very cool. So before I ask you to tell me like about the film festival run and what you're doing with that, I'm gonna name a action movie from 1990 that if you haven't seen it, it's your homework to do it. Do it for your dad. You have to see this movie, Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth.
No.
Okay. It is one of the best trash action movies ever. Like, it's amazing. So Stone Cold, Brian Bosworth, put it on your list. At the time, Brian Bosworth was a former NFL football player who was this huge college player, All-American at Oklahoma in the 80s. The Boz with the shaved head and the mohawk. And so it was his personality, and he got into action films. And so put it on the list. You'll thank me later.
It's on the list. I'll just put it on.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we've been doing a movie night every night this week, so maybe that'll be on the list tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, good. Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think of it then after.
Oh, we will. One of our really good friends, Ian Pfaff, who's like this incredible filmmaker, artist, and a connoisseur of like 80s action movies, is like he was he was building our knowledge in this during the pandemic. And that's what we're doing. So I'm gonna also check in with him about
he called
this.
it the Brovid Bangers.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So, anyways, not to get too off topic there, you have your film that we're talking about here. But so you premiered, your world premiere was at South by, correct?
Yes.
And then what was that experience like? And then kind of how have things gone from there? Because I know how the film festival, so I have a film festival I've run for 19 years in Florida as well. I've done a little bit of everything. So, so I know how that film festival world works in that, you know, you're applying to film festivals, you're waiting to get in, you're hoping you get the one that you want for your world premiere, which is probably South by because, you know, you're Texas filmmakers. And then from there, you have others that you want to do, but then you start getting invitations after you've gotten into another festival. Talk a little bit about that process and what it was like and kind of where you're going on the festival run now.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was okay. So we, you know, it's for filmmakers out there, I think, especially first time filmmakers, it's so helpful to know that we applied to festivals all last year.
Like end of 2022.
End of 2022 for 2023 and got rejected everywhere. And that was really tough. And I thought that was it. And I don't, you know, like what happens after that? I didn't know. I didn't know if you could resubmit, you know, and I'm glad it happened because the movie wasn't ready and it really did. We did need to finish it and it got way better. And it's amazing. Thanks to like our amazing, incredible collaborators and our editor, Chloe Abrahams, that came on and helped us, you know, finish the film. And then, you know, it was, we submitted, and by that, it was helpful to have that first run of like rejection and disappointment, because by the next time around, I was just kind of like, I was like, I still really want to get into South by. And if it doesn't happen, it's okay. But like, that's the dream. But I just like all of the other festivals around that, I was just kind of like not just about anymore, which felt really good.
Did you get rejected by South by in 23 originally? And then you resubmitted after you had made changes to the film?
Yeah. And it wasn't making changes for the festival, which felt really too. It was like, okay, we have a year to continue to edit. Cause we did in the beginning, I was like, just very first time filmmaker, mindset. I was like, oh, it's done. You know, the festival's coming up. We need to finish. And it wasn't ready. Yeah. So we got accepted and it was insane. I mean, like the twins went to school at UT, Mars went to film school, we
volunteered as freshmen in 2011 at the South by Film Festival as like ticket takers for the Paramount Theater. Yeah. So Mars, our brother, got to take a picture with Guillermo del Toro. He was having a talk there. And we got to see Rainn Wilson and for the movie Super. It was just like such an incredible experience. And then to be able to come back
as filmmakers
13 years later for the second time, having the first film, it was a dream. It was beyond the dream.
And then, Tony, as if that couldn't get any greater, it's like, my husband had his North American premiere at South by too, like before ours. And then my best friend also was premiering at South by, and we had like back-to-back premieres.
I think this system is rigged. There's something going on here.
It was like, I couldn't dream that big. It was insane. It was just like the most special experience ever. And their films are highly worth checking out. Gasoline Rainbow and Songs from the Hole.
I was going to say, tell us about your husband's film.
Yeah, it's a really great road trip movie on the coast of Oregon that's having its theatrical premiere in May.
Awesome.
For people to check it out. And Songs from the Hole is also making its festival rounds. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm like so excited that for, you know, post South by, these are the films that we get to travel with. And our film is getting to go to different communities. I mean, we're just really excited to have it play around Texas. So we're looking forward to like, you know, any and all festivals.
Have you already had another festival just after South by, or is there something else? What's coming up next?
We did Cleveland International Film Festival,
That's a
which
good
was
fest.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so welcoming. Everybody was just so like happy to have us there. And I love Ohio. My husband's from Ohio, so it was
I grew up in Toledo.
Really? Oh my God, he's from Sydney. I'm still getting to know the state, but I'm a huge fan. Love it. No wonder.
I know you like those Ohio guys for some reason. So no, I'm not. I've got a girl, so we're good.
No. But Ohio people are just so friendly and fun. Yeah, we have tons of Ohio friends now.
Robbie was telling some of the organizers of the festival, like there's just something about Ohioans. There's this word in Spanish that is
everyone's so amable here, but I'm like, how do you say that in English?
Because it's like kind and friendly
at the same time, and they're like, oh, that's Midwestern.
Yeah, that's total Midwest, and so it's funny. It's one of the reasons I think I like St. Pete, Clearwater, Dunedin, Florida so much is because I-75 runs right from the middle of Michigan, Ohio, right to Tampa area. And so, So if you want to move there, you just get on the road and go. You don't even need a map or GPS or anything. And then, like I-95 runs New York to Miami. And so you get the east coast of Florida is populated by New York, New Jersey. And then the Gulf of Mexico is all Midwesterners. And so part of the reason I took the job here in Dallas is because everybody is so friendly. Like I'd been here before a couple times and I'm like, people are so nice. Like, I guess I like nice places. It's nice. Ohio, parts of Florida, Texas.
and Texas. Texas is so
very,
nice.
Very friendly.
I feel like Texas can get a bad rap here and there, but I'm like, no, Texans are all really wonderful. If we all just sit together and like actually hang out, Texans are so amable.
Yeah, no, people are super friendly here, except for the two personal trainers at the gym that I go to. They're just rude. I don't know why. They're just two rude guys. And I'm like, why are you guys so rude? Everybody else in Texas is so nice. So you've done Cleveland, you've done South by. What's coming up next?
Boston's
we're going to be
next.
International Film Festival of Boston at the first week of May.
And then we are.
I think there are a few more, but they haven't announced yet, so I don't know if we're allowed to say.
Well, this podcast won't come out until where are we at? Probably sometime in the beginning of May, I think, is when we'll do, because we have a few others lined up in front of you. So you don't have to say yet if you don't want to. It's not that.
Well, I think Munich.
Oh, cool.
International Film Festival. So that'll be our international premiere.
Awesome. I love Munich. I go for Oktoberfest. I have friends of mine and I that we just every year like pop over for Oktoberfest, and it's stupid. It's fun. Great. That's a great place. And my niece lives in Boston now. I don't know what this is, but my niece lives in Boston. I love Munich. There's a weird connection here. I'm not sure what's going on.
Tell your niece to come to the screening in Boston.
I will.
On the 2nd of May.
This just means we really actually need to be friends. Like,
well, and you're in New Orleans now. I'm very good friends with the Baton Rouge Film Commissioner, and I'm friends with the New Orleans Film Commissioner as well. And as I had mentioned that I was a retail district manager, 6 of my stores were in New Orleans when I had that before. So I had 6 in Florida, 6 in New Orleans. So I've spent a lot of time in New Orleans, and I've been a sponsor of the New Orleans Film Festival when I was in Florida, and now in Dallas for probably the last 7-8 years or something like that.
Oh wow, that's amazing! Yeah, Andrew told us that you guys were having a big party that time, but I couldn't come. There were too many things. So Andrew went to New Orleans. I went to, I think I was in LA for AFM or something like that. They couldn't quite line up correctly, but I like all the places where you are or where you're going. I like all the places where you are too. Okay, next time, New Orleans Film Festival. No, absolutely, yeah, great festival, and I think it's in November this year. And the people there are great. I've got a long relationship with them, so I'll definitely be in New Orleans for that fest later this year. How did you end up then in New Orleans from? So you're in New York, you're in Eagle Pass, and then where does New Orleans come in all this? I fell in love with my husband. So I moved here, and who's from Ohio, but moved to New Orleans. It's been here for like the past 15 years. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was always intrigued by this place, and then I'm here and I love it. But I'm like traveling so much all the time that I hardly get to spend enough time.
Yeah.
Because Alex now lives in Mexico City.
Okay.
And
if you have any connections there.
I don't, but I have a friend of mine here in Dallas that just spent 3 weeks in Mexico City, and I was just had dinner with her the other night. We were talking about that.
Oh wow! And she was telling you got to go.
Yeah.
Great place.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. And yeah, so I spent so much time there too, because just like working together. But yeah, my falling in love, which feels so nice to say.
How long have you been married now?
6 months, a few days ago on the 13th.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
we got married. Thank you. We got married last October in Eagle Pass. There was like during Nacho Fest, because for listeners out there that don't know, the nacho was invented in our hometown on the
Really?
Mexican side.
I would have never known that. But Nacho Fest sounds like an awesome time. That's all
Exactly. That's why Nacho Fest was created, so that people can know that that's where it comes from and what the original nacho tastes like.
Robbie used her wedding as propaganda. Get people to fall in love with Eagle Pass and Piedras Negras.
So the wedding was during Nacho Fest?
It was during Nacho Fest, because I'm like, the border, there's not, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, but there's not like so much to do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we line it up with like this really fun thing that happens once a year. It should be great. And the weather's going to be great. And then just to like solidify our decision and like validate it, there was an eclipse the following day, like the partial eclipse in October. And it was amazing. It's like, we had all these amazing things happening. So
that sounds pretty great. But I think I need to know more about Nacho Fest though. Like, talk me through Nacho Fest. Like, what is happening during Nacho Fest? I mean, I imagine lots of eating of nachos. Yes, that's like given. Yeah. But give me a little more on this.
I mean, it's going to blow your mind, because it's like a 3-day celebration, all dedicated to this incredible snack that signifies, it to me is like this like culinary metaphor of like the border, and like what happens when the border is allowed to just be like its natural self. It's fluid. It's like in 1950, 40 something, these American army wives that like lived on the American side in Eagle Pass, like went to Piedras just for dinner, as like one does. You go over to Piedras for like dinner of the weekend, whatever. And they went to this restaurant, Club Victoria, that, I think the kitchen had just shut down, but they're like, please, can we get anything, just anything you have? And the guy that was a maitre d', which like, I don't know what that is, a maitre d', but maitre d', Ignacio Anaya, goes back into the kitchen and just like fashions this incredible snack out of like tortilla chips, fried tortilla chips. And he had like Wisconsin cheddar cheese and like puts them all on a plate. And on each chip, this is very important, on each chip, there's like a healthy little like mound of cheese, puts them in the oven, takes them out and puts like a pickled jalapeno on each one of them, and then takes them out to them. And they're like, oh my God, this is incredible. What is this? Like nacho special, because
the nickname for Ignacio is Nacho.
Yeah.
Like amazing.
Yeah, and then it spread like wildfire.
And then since the 90s, they started celebrating the festival, making the world's largest nacho. And every year, where they make this pan, they make it a little bit bigger by a few centimeters. Right. And they also make the world's smallest nacho. You need a microscope to be able to see.
And it's amazing. And then like, so it all leads up to like the making of the world's largest nacho that then they like, share with everybody that goes to see it. But right. Like both sides of the town get together. Like one year I filmed it for BBC Travel, and it was like, the mayors of both towns and like the border patrol from like Eagle Pass goes and helps make the nacho. It's just like, it's so cute. And, and then the day before, the largest nacho, which is like the final thing, they have like a competition of like who can make the best original nacho and who can make the best, like, exotic nacho, they call it. Yeah. Just like inventive. And then there's just like all these like they put a little carnival up on the Riverwalk. And it's amazing. It's so beautiful. And I am a huge supporter of it. And I want to make it a thing. I want to make it.
So that's your next film, right? Is Nacho Fest?
Probably.
I mean, really, you know what you do if you really want to make it a thing? You don't make a documentary. You make a feature film where the Nacho Fest is a part of the story. That,
yes.
And because then if you have X, Y, Z name actors that are in the film and it's whatever story that goes along with it, and then Nacho Fest just happens to be taking place at the same time, that's when people see that and be like, I want to go to Nacho Fest. So, you put your rom-com together. It's some girl from Texas and a boy from Ohio meet somewhere, and they make plans to meet up later in her hometown, but just happens to be during Nacho Fest.
Oh my God. This is brilliant. Tony, we got it. I mean, if you need if you have some producing time later on,
we'll talk.
After this.
We'll talk. We'll do a Nacho Fest movie.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
What did your husband think of when he came to? Did his family come down as well? I mean, was it like for like their first? They come down and they're going to the wedding during Nacho Fest. Like, what's that like for them?
It was. I mean, it wasn't their first time. The funny story is that.
So this is another movie.
He had made a movie in Eagle Pass that came out in 2015 at Sundance, and
him and his brother are co-directors, and their third film came out in 2015 called Western, and it's about our mayor at the time, Chad Foster, in Eagle Pass, and what his life as a mayor on the border looked like. And
and then we happened to I found out about the movie, and I was like, how did I not know about these guys? And then we met like a year later in New York at the Museum of Moving Image, and it was awesome. And then we're like, oh my God. And then
Well, that is a very cool story.
Yeah, thank you. It was a very cool way to meet. So his family had already been down there when they had filmed the movie in 2010, 2011, and he turned 30 back then. And so all of his friends and family went down to Eagle Pass at the time, but they didn't get the experience that we gave them.
Right.
So the wedding was like, wow, we pulled out all the stops. It was amazing. It was like, they hadn't been to Nacho Fest. I mean, my in-laws had, because they had gone down one time just for it to visit. I had talked it up so much, and that's where the idea for getting married during Nacho Fest came.
Okay, it all ties together, makes sense. See, now when we started, I told you that this would just be a conversation and we would just let the conversation go wherever it would. We started on this very, serious film about the border and then spent 10 minutes talking about Nacho Fest. But that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. I regret.
We're so bad at promoting our film. I'm a talker.
And that's exactly what the film is. It's an invitation to Eagle Pass and Piedras Negras to celebrate a day and a coming of age for the people that are from there. And so Nacho Fest is very much that same invitation of getting to experience the border.
We need to bring it back, Alex.
How people there know.
Producer.
Yes, absolutely. So what's next for you guys then? So you're doing the festival run, but surely you have other projects that you've either been working on lining up or that you have in mind. What are you doing next?
Yeah, well, we have a ton of projects that we're excited to just continue on. They've all in sort of various stages of development. But we're still, which are still super excited to continue exploring childhood on the border, identity on the border, culture, this fluid culture. I mean, definitely a rom-com. At some point, the film, when it got rejected from everywhere, was trying to be like a teen movie too. So I feel like this teen movie really wants to come out.
Yeah.
Maybe a buddy comedy.
A buddy comedy on the border
Okay.
is what's next. A fiction. so that we're able to do all the crazy things that we're.
Yeah, you've got a whole lineup of border films there. You could do 16 Candles on the Border. You got your buddy comedy on the border, the rom-com. You put it all together.
All of our
childhood 80s films you watched from your dad, you know?
Exactly. All of these ideas that we have are basically all the movies we grew up loving, but on the border.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because it really does like create, it's like this like incredible experience that people that like we grew up with that people don't know about. It's like we like, you know, at some point we were working on this one, but then the pandemic hit and we had to like scrap the movie. But it's just like graduating in Eagle Pass, Piedras, it's like I graduated and then you go to Piedras to go celebrate. And it's just kind of like, you know, testing the limits of like your parents wanting you back home at a certain time, but then like navigating through like the logistics of the border and it's just like, and it's all like clean, happy, safe, fun, but it's just like such a unique experience. But not unique to us on the border. It's like that's
I think that's great because there's an authenticity to it, right? Like, so you can watch a John Hughes film, and those are very authentic to Chicago and sort of that Midwest sensibility of those kids in that era and what's happening there. And so, you know, it's like you said earlier, it's the right what you know. So, you know, you're telling, like, we're not telling any new stories, right? Like the films people are making now are going to make for the next 100 years. These are not new stories told that no one's ever seen or heard before. They're just stories that are told from a unique point of view that if they have some form of authenticity to it, whether it's from your experiences growing up on the border or mine in Florida and Ohio, whatever it might be, that's what people connect to is just the authenticness of it, no matter what the story is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting to be able to work on those movies because it's like the same excitement that we felt that we still feel watching all of that, where we totally related to, like we were just rewatching Mean Girls last night. And it's like, that feels so much like my experience, but it wasn't at all. Yeah. But it's like, but that experience of awkwardness, you know, of like awkward teenhood and trying to fit in, being bullied and like, and then just like the exciting possibility of bringing that to screen in the border context of being like on the border, you have to be a teen in 2 different languages in 2 different countries. And like, there's so much like awkwardness that comes with that, but that's our normal, you know, and you don't really see it until you leave and you like get this like bird's eye perspective. So I'm just so excited to like look back at all of those experiences and retell them. And then like the fantastical experiences of like, you know, what does a fantasy movie, a sci-fi movie down there look like? A Goonies on the border?
Oh, that would be fun. That would be awesome. Yeah. I will definitely make some introductions. I will introduce you to Katie Pryor, who is the Baton Rouge Film Commissioner. You guys will get along really well because Katie and I get along really well. So I know that you both will get along with Katie as well. She's amazing. But unfortunately, we have to wrap this up. That went really quick though in our random conversations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What a fun time hanging out with you.
Well, we'll hang out in person. I'll come to New Orleans for New Orleans Film Festival. You should have my email from when Austin scheduled everything. So just shoot me an email and say hi so I can get you guys cell phone numbers and we'll exchange all the social medias and all that other fun stuff.
I love it.
All right. Well, it's very nice meeting the both of you. Thank you, everyone. For whoever random people are listening to the Dallas Film Podcast and the talk of Nacho Fest on the border in Eagle Pass there. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. We'll talk to you soon.